Hey, it's Navid, and in this session, we are going to talk about how you can create amazing AI art in minutes that convert. And I have my good friend Jenna Soard here, and she's gonna basically break this process down for you using different AI tools. And what I've known actually Jenna for almost 10 years. She was part of one of my first summits, and she's an expert when it comes to branding and design. She also worked for Nike, which I think is really cool, one of my favorite brands. So yeah, she has a lot of experience when it comes to this, both practical and also in the online world. And now she's leveraging her skills to do this with artificial intelligence, which is everywhere right now. And there's tools popping up left and right. So we are gonna dive into this, and hopefully by the end of this session, this is gonna be a little bit more clear. And if you enjoy anything we are saying, you can also drop a comment below and subscribe to the channel here. But with that being said, warm welcome, Jenna.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Navid. It's so fun. We were just saying we're celebrating like 9 years ago
Yeah.
that we met, and like look at all the things that have happened. It's just a full circle moment.
Yeah, and what's interesting is we actually I don't remember exactly the session we had for the first kind of summit back in the day and stuff like that, but we talked about something with branding. And now we are, 9 years, almost 10 years later, we are
I
talking about
know.
AI branding and how you can create like
Mhm.
really cool images and stuff like that. So before we get into kind of this today, how did you stumble across? I mean, it's everywhere now, but how did you get into AI, and why did you
Yeah.
find it so interesting to leverage it in your business?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So, I mean, it was a year ago, or actually even closer to almost a year and a half ago, maybe even closer to 2 years ago, that a friend of mine had sent the preview for Dolly, and they had shown what the images were with the avocado chair. And I was like, oh my goodness, as a designer, to be able to not have to buy stock images, hire a photographer, hire an illustrator. When I saw just even the preview images of Dolly 2 or Dolly 1, I was like, wow. And so I was kind of just waiting for it to come out. And a whole bunch of apps were coming out at the time that would allow you to use prompts to generate from your phone. And they were horrible, but I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And it's so funny because I was posting them on Facebook and everybody is like, why are you posting this weird art? But, seeing how far it's come in the last year has been incredible. And now it's every part of my business is using AI art.
Yeah, and let's talk about the reason why, how this actually
Mhm.
can help your business. I mean, it makes sense maybe for a designer,
Mhm.
speed up some workflows
Sure.
and stuff like that. But what about a regular creator, entrepreneur who's just want to leverage
Mhm.
this in their business? Well, why should they do this?
Yeah. So one of the first things that happened is that as soon as, tools like Midjourney came out, it just really, set the stage for like what could actually happen with this art. Dolly, even still today, even with Dolly 3, I don't believe is as good as Midjourney for the most part.
Okay,
And yeah,
interesting.
it's just the level of artistry and what they've created over there is incredible. And so when I started doing Midjourney images, I was constantly getting asked the question, how are you doing this? How are you doing this? And I made a rule right away to never talk about process and that I knew that if I safeguarded what I was doing, that it would drive sales. And so the first month that I did this, I made $123,000.
Wow.
And it was not even, there was no Facebook ads, there was no launch, there was no beta testing, there was nothing. And I got all these people, hundreds of people into a membership, and that was a year ago. And I realized I was onto something, and I actually like created this don't ask, don't tell people what we're doing policy. It was called the Fight Club policy
Mm.
of like what happens in Fight Club stays in Fight Club. And then I gave them like an affiliate link to the membership so that they wouldn't be tempted to create their own, and that they could like, profit from getting a whole bunch of people into the membership, and we could all have an AI party together. And so that kind of like started it. And it really, the selling point at that point was two things. Number one, we noticed a huge increase in leads and decrease in lead cost by using AI images and ads. So what would normally cost anywhere from $5 to $10 for ad was costing about 75 cents. And so we were using the AI images as a lead magnet. So like hey, celestial, woo woo entrepreneurs, if you want to use these cool celestial images, you can get 33 of these images for free if you give us your email address. And then we would get them into a Facebook group. And so we were seeing that the cost per lead was dropping. The amount of people who were joining the Facebook group was literally about anywhere between 50 to 80% of the people who came through on the lead ad. And I was like, we're really on to something here. And so that's sort of how it all began.
Wow, that's incredible. So basically you built this community interested in the same thing. So you basically leverage your skills, and because you have a design background, and then you obviously one thing led to another, and then you're using all these tools. But you know what? Let's get into some more benefits of this, like in terms of like regular kind of online businesses and stuff like that. What's some benefits of using AI art to grow your business? Like I'm not talking just as a designer or someone who wants to sell this, but like in terms of how can I use this for a launch or for even a virtual summit, or maybe coming up with a new product that I can leverage this.
Yeah, so I mean, I think one of the massive benefits that you have when you're doing something like this is you have the ability to have access to imagery and illustrations, and even now getting into animations that used to not only cost a tremendous amount of money to get developed, but also it was really complicated to do this. So as a designer, as a graphic design is really, of course, the art of image, typography, layout. And for me to be a designer, when I worked at Nike, when I would do freelance design, I was always reliant on stock image companies to provide the images for my designs. And that created a tremendous amount of problems because, number one, getting things to look the same brand. I don't know if you've experienced this before, but you're trying to find an image and you're like, okay, this one's cool, but I can't find anything else like it.
Yeah.
And so it leads to you needing to hire a photographer, but then you're taking this big risk because you have the cost associated with that. You have to hire models. You have to like do all this stuff. It takes thousands of dollars, it takes a stylist, makeup, all of these things. And so what's happened with the AI thing is it's created this amazing experience that you can become the creative director of your own brand. That means that you can, brand your summit or brand your challenge or brand your product and be able to get all of the images to look the same. Have all, not have to pay for models, not have to pay for stylists, not have to pay for photographers. It's insane.
Yeah, this is actually, I've seen the founder of Mind Valley Vision, Lakiani, he talked about this as well on one, where I saw one video where he discussed this. And before they had a lot of stock images on their blog, and it was like horrible. Well, it was not aligned, was really bad. And then they started to using AI tools like Midjourney and stuff like that, and to create it and look much more on brand, because you can actually, we're going to talk about this, how you can prompt it and give them instructions to actually create something that is more on brand with the colors and the, light or whatever you want. Even I think you can even prompt to have with the camera. If I'm using like a Sony A7R5 or something, I can even say, hey, you can have a photo with this. So it's like a similar bokeh or whatever. So you can actually emulate really professional stuff. Of course, there's a time and place maybe for a professional photo shoot and stuff like that, but you don't need to do that for your day-to-day to spend. They're so costly unless you're like a massive brand. But even big brands can save so much money by using, as you said, these AI tools and AI art to generate images for their day-to-day. So I completely agree.
If you remember originally why I sort of came on the scene for branding was because in a sea of coaches that were getting photography of them sitting in a coffee shop or blowing sparkles into the camera lens, or all the like cliche photos that you would see or websites that you would see that would look like Marie Forleo knockoffs. I came into the world in like 2013 with like, how can I be different? I was a designer. I wanted to stick out. I was also teaching design. So I wanted to teach something that wasn't so cookie cutter. And I had to hire a pinup photographer to do my first sessions. And if you remember, I dressed up like Amelia Earhart and he superimposed me like on her plane. And I asked him at one point, I was like, why is the picture of her plane sort of blurry? And he's like, oh, it's Amelia Earhart's real plane. So it was like this whole process of like costumes and makeup and all these things. It's something I could only do probably 2 times a year max, and would cost me about $3,000 to $5,000 every time I would do it.
Yeah.
And with technology that's just been released, like in the past couple of months, I've been able to, with the combination of Photoshop and some other programs, intermix a whole bunch of AIs to be able to get photo shoots that look like the photo shoots I used to pay thousands of dollars for.
Wow.
So, I
That's
mean, it's
incredible.
really intense process to do it, but it's like comparatively to hiring and modeling and like doing all the things. So suddenly all of my students, they don't have to lose weight to go get their photo shoot. They don't have to hire a stylist. They don't have to do all these things, so they can get these really incredible photo shoots without all of that.
Yeah, and there's pretty technical process. You mentioned like in our pre-chat a little bit about this. So it's like you go through
Yeah.
these many tools and then you kind of get it
Yes.
to upscale
Yeah.
it and stuff like that.
Yes.
But you can maybe show some examples in a bit here to
Yeah.
kind of show
Really.
what it can look like. And
Sure.
but
Mhm.
yeah, have you found anything about the ethical versus non-ethical thing?
Yeah.
Because there's obviously there's the
Yeah.
same thing with plagiarism when it comes to
Mhm.
generate a copy and blog posts and stuff like that with the help of AI, right? A lot of
Mhm.
people are using it wrong. They're using it not as an
Yeah.
assistant, but they're using it as the holy grail, right? And I don't
Mhm.
think AI is that. At least not yet. I think you need
Mhm.
to add in your personal touch to actually get it exactly the way you want. So it's not the internet is not looking exactly the same everywhere, right? So what have you
Yeah.
found when it comes to this?
So there's been, it's funny that you said this because, like, right. So I had launched that membership back in September, and it was about, I want to say November, December, somewhere in that area where Lenza came out. Remember when the Lenza thing came out and everybody was
Yep.
like doing the shots of themselves and they're like
The avatar,
AI?
right? Like of their like the AI avatar
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
everyone
Like,
posting on social media.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the problem with like technology like that is, it's cookie cutter. They were uploading a picture of themselves getting like 15, but they have no creative direction or anything on it. And it was right about that time that all the artists who were realizing what was going on with the AI art generators like Stable Diffusion and Midjourney and all these things, that they were looking at the training module that helped create those systems. And the unfortunate part of this is it was a educational model that trained on pretty much every image on the internet. I mean, it scraped every single image on Instagram. It scraped every image on Google. It had no discernment of what it was scraping. So it even added in things like medical pictures and like things that were really inappropriate. I mean, like really bad.
Yeah.
And so the problem was that they like didn't, because it was for an educational nonprofit situation, they didn't get the proper, permissions. They kind of basically scraped the entire internet. So if you can kind of think of it in terms of like what Google did with search, with searching, people who end up in Google don't get permission. Like, no, Google didn't go to them and say, "Hey, can I put you in the search term?" So I kind of think of it as a similar sort of thing. And in addition to that, like the way that they created these technologies, if you understand the science behind it, is the reason why they can get away with scraping the entire internet, getting inspired by every famous artist that's in the world, living or dead, and be able to create the art even better than the artist could, which is, if you think about it, it's like an oof. You've spent your whole life learning how to create an artist style only to find out that people are creating images that could be better than what your original style was. The way that those systems learned is very similar to how an actual artist learns how to create art. So, if you think about any great artist in the world, even like Da Vinci or Michelangelo or any of those, they always studied under someone, right? They never just like instantly created art from their imagination and became amazing. They did master studies. So what the AI did is it basically did master studies of every art movement in the world, and so it could create the most amazing art in the world. So how they could get away with it was they had this ability to create things that were 100% new that had never been created before. So somebody who has, like, let's say if we're talking about Mark Ryden, who's an amazing artist, he has a very unique style. Well, now imagine there's a whole entire world where you could create a million characters in Mark Ryden's style, but they're not characters he's ever created before. They're something totally new, but it's in his style. The problem is you can't copyright style. And thank goodness you can't, because if you could copyright style, then you would run into a situation where like Nike would be the only one who could use edgy images, and you would be completely like have your hands tied on what types of styles you could use. So the ethical way to do this and moving forward is, not referencing one artist in your prompts, so that especially if they're living, or ever trying to pass off work as your own in somebody's style, just from an ethical perspective, but also to like not compete with them with their own style and things. But what you can do is you can mix 5 different artists together. So if you're like, I'm going to mix Shepard Fairey with Andy Warhol with Mark Ryden, well, now we're talking about something that the world has really never seen before. And so this ability to kind of mix and match and create new things is like where the real power is. So what I teach my students to do is like, never use a living working artist name. Always try to create something new. Like always try to create a combination of different art movements, of different artistic styles, of different artistic mediums. And then, of course, taking it even one step further, I teach them how to create a brand strategy around that. Like, how do we figure out what your ideal client likes? How do we figure out who you are as a guru? How do we figure out what's fitting for your industry? So it's a combination of those things that really create ethical art generation.
Yeah, I completely agree with this, because also when it comes to, let's say, creating a website or something, there's nothing really new when it comes to like design per se, but you can actually mix and match. Like you can take something from this website and from this, and it's no copying. Like if you copy a style, then everyone will say, I mean, you remember when everyone copied Marie Forleo's websites like years ago? I mean, that was so common. Like a lot of coaches did that, but instead they could have like taken a few elements. Maybe they liked her style of photos or something like that, and then they could have like mixed other things, but they took basically just blindly copying. That's like the worst way of doing things, and there's nothing unique about it. So it's the same with these images you're talking about here. So and
it has to do with market confusion, really.
yeah.
Is like, why copy something so directly that I can't tell the difference between Marie Forleo and your site? And it's the same thing. Like, why would I want to go take a well-known artist who's like so known for a particular style and like try to compete with them? Like that to me feels like blatant stealing. And so these systems will do things like that with, Marvel characters and Disney characters and all of those things. Even though you can generate a Mickey Mouse, it doesn't mean you can use it commercially. And it also doesn't mean, because of trademark law, that you can even really generate that legally. Like creating
And they are
fan
so
art
strict
is
about
kind
it
of
too. They are
yeah.
crazy strict. They will like come Marvel and all these. They will come after you. So don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do. But you mentioned a little bit about prompting. Like, so I think that's obviously the key, I guess, to getting the image you want. So how would you do that? You said the Midjourney is what you primarily use to generate these AI art images. So what do you usually do to get maybe you can show some example or demonstrate this a little bit as much as you can?
Yeah, so I can show you just like a prompt spelled out here. Here are like the AI basics anatomy of a prompt. So like, all relevant, all the things that happen in Midjourney. There's like a whole bunch of things called parameters, which we can talk a little bit about if you want to.
Yep.
But it starts off with like typing in /imagine prompt. And so this is like the first way that you start in Midjourney to create something. So the next thing that I recommend is like anything at the head of the prompt is going to have more important value than something towards the latter half of the prompt. So I say it to people, like describe what your subject is. So like in this instance, I'm like saying, a cute Boston Terrier puppy would be like the first part of this. And then you could say like doing a detailed action. So like, what is this dog doing? Is it flying over Sedona? Is it on a cityscape? What sort of environment is it in? And then the description of the artistic style, era, pop culture reference, photography specific, such as lenses, lighting, and then parameters. So this basically breaks down what a prompt could look like. So in this instance, this was like, a baby Boston Terrier sitting in a field. And then the description of the style is something called fairycore. So it's like a subculture of fashion and would create these really interesting images of of a Boston Terrier with this like sort of subculture. So imagine like subculture being something like hip hop or country western dancing or anything like that. And you can really start to adjust the settings in the back end of Midjourney to sort of get different effects. One of the things that I did here was I actually created an artistic style guide to help my students like sort of get through different styles so that they can actually use this. It's like a 186 page thing where I actually show what happens when you use different settings in Midjourney to get a different effect. So you can see this one is like minimalist, and it's like where it says --S50 is a parameter, and what that actually means is like Midjourney create something as close to the prompt as humanly possible. So it's not going to go crazy and create a whole bunch of other style. And it also has this setting on called raw, which means that it's going to remove even more of the styling. So you can see something pretty photographic here. Now going to the next one, you turn the raw mode off and things get a lot more illustrative. This is the same exact prompt or pretty similar, and it has pretty different results. So what I would do is I would go through and start taking the same exact prompt or some concept that's similar and start putting different art styles on it. So this is cubist with the raw mode on, this is cubist with the raw mode off, and then psychedelic with the raw mode on. You can see like this is more photographic, and then it moves into something more illustrative with the raw mode off. So these sorts of settings can create different things that you can really control. And so you can see all the different styles. So this is like bizarre and grotesque. This is abstract and conceptual. So I'm just going to flip through some of these. And then there's this other parameter here that's called, before, as I was talking about the style prompting being 50, that means be as close to the prompt as possible. Whereas 1000 is like Midjourney go crazy. And so you can see here that with this being at 1000, what it actually looks like when it's actually this impressionistic is the same exact prompt with the stylizing at 50. So it's like, hey, go as close to this as possible. And then this is the same exact prompt with the stylizing up at 1000. So you can see that it's like different. It's like much, much cooler that way.
But do they have some guidelines for this? Like you say, like, I mean, or did you just learn this, or did you find out that they have some guidelines for, because you talked about the parameters and that's kind of how you direct it?
Like in my membership, I give like a full breakdown of what I actually do, like parameter wise. So like there's parameters for aspect ratio. So you can change images to a different aspect ratio, and you can see here's how the prompt's laid out. And then there's an aspect ratio here. So you can see, oh, it's this one. In regards to style parameter, it's like, 50 means as close to the image as possible, whereas like 250 is like high and 1000 is maxed. And so there's different parameters that will do different things, like everything from use the parameter weird to make things look really weird, put in the parameter tile to make a seamless pattern, put in the parameter no if you want something not to show up in the prompt. If you want, there's chaos that will generate wildly different results when you're trying to go for stuff. So there's lots of different, ways that you can, essentially skin a cat, like there's so many different ways that you can
and
do
there's
it.
also like tons of different prompts and stuff like that. There's some different websites as well with different prompts you can use depending on what kind of image you want. But something I was interested to know a little bit, how, like, for example, do you use a lot of AI art for your social media to grow faster, for example, or for list building and stuff like that? That might be interesting to a lot of the people watching this.
So right now, I've made over $3.5 million with this business, and I don't do any social media really. The only social media that I do is like posting on my personal Facebook page, which is where I generated the 123,000 last September, and continually to make more money from my personal Facebook page.
Is it mostly from ads you're doing this? Like, because for ads, I can see this is
100%.
working really well, but I think also for organic social media, I mean, just because you don't do, I mean, I think it can still apply, right? If something is working for ads, probably might work even better for organic social media. So is that kind of how you are growing your list, like with AI art?
Yeah, so we're just now getting into organic because the business is getting so big. We're like, okay, we should probably have this in addition to, because we now have the converting mechanism that works so well that we just need to feed people into it to like have everything roll. So now it's like, oh, okay, like how are we going to use some of the AI stuff to go into the social media part? I will say that using the social content, having an image to illustrate your actual prompt or your actual post. If you're writing something and you have a beautiful image to illustrate it, let's say you're writing about, this great love that you have and you're tying it into your relationship coaching business. Well, now instead of posting just like a picture of your significant other or something, you could actually create this like really inspirational image of love that nobody else is going to have in a style that's completely relevant for your brand, that is going to get a lot more attention than just a random selfie usually. So, of course, that organic has worked extremely well. And then, of course, every time that we've used AI images, our cost per, sales call goes way down. And our cost per lead goes way down, all of these things. And as we've started to teach people this, the same thing has happened. So it has to do with like, people, if you're in your news feed in Facebook and you see this wild image come out, you're going to have a lot more people respond to it than if it looks like something everybody else is doing. So yeah, so that's pretty much like how we end up using it. And just so you can see here, just a couple more examples too, is like this is before without the stylizing on, and this is after. So you can really see like there's lots of different ways to like take the same concept and make it completely artistically different just by understanding design styles.
But can
Yeah.
you do this, like you mentioned photo shoots before earlier in this in the
Mhm.
session, how, let's say I have some great photos, I like them, but I don't have time to do another photo
Yeah.
shoot. Would it be
hmm
possible to
hmm
generate similar images of myself that I can use for my personal brand? Do you have any examples of this?
Yeah, so I wanted to show this to you really quick. It's on my personal Facebook page right now, but it's kind of a fun breakdown. So, like, here's an
Yeah.
image that I did of me, and I want to show you where it started because it's crazy. So, I created this, like, kind of boring picture. Can you see this, Navid?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I created this kind of like basic kind of I felt like it was like a little too sexy, like image of this, witch for the Halloween season. And I ended up like going like, I don't really like it. So I went through a process and like switched my face out on it in Photoshop. And then I went through and then took it through this process using stable diffusion. This is a really complicated setup and it
Yeah.
requires so much to get this done, but it turned the image into a realistic image. And so I was like, you know what? It's still like too sexy for me. Like I don't like really like this. So I took it into Photoshop and like modified it even more and like, took out the lens or took out the crisscross, lace here, changed the thigh highs to like boots, and then like took it into another phone app and added makeup and changed the smile on my face. So like most of the time, this is taking like 5 or 6 apps to do something like this. But like for me to do a photo shoot like that, it would have taken thousands of dollars. So like that's an
Yeah,
example of
obviously
like,
this is pretty involved. Yeah, I was thinking something more
yeah,
simple, more toned down, but you're showing the more extreme here. But that's
yeah.
that's all good.
Yeah,
This
so
is all.
and
Yeah.
being able to share things like, this is the new Dolly 3 that just came out. This is another system that's called Ideogram. And so there's like these new AIs that are coming out that do words, and they're actually like, even Dolly is like messing up here where it like forgot the R in secret. And so, you have to get like 25 tries before you get it to spell something correctly, but it looks pretty cool, so like this stuff used to be incredibly expensive to do, and then you can see here too, this is the same thing. This is a Midjourney image taken and done with the stable diffusion sort of setup that I have, and then turned into like this is the makeup version and this is the version without makeup. So it's like this progression to get to this would have taken a stylist, makeup, like full on
Mhm.
sets. And what's really neat is we're getting so photographic now, which was just incredible.
Yeah, if
So
you're looking at it this way, I mean that would
mhm,
take a long time, and then I mean in
Mhm.
online it's still a process, right? You mentioned using like 6 tools.
Mhm.
What tools do you actually use to do this? Like
So there's
Midjourney, you
yeah,
mentioned
there's
before.
so many different tools. So it's like
What is your favorite ones to do things like that?
so of course, starting with Midjourney, this is an example of a Midjourney image. The style came from deep research into the best-selling art images in an art store. I created the prompt from analyzing what was currently selling in the marketplace. I discovered through this type of prompting that I could only get this aesthetic if I had the word bird cage in the prompt.
Wow.
Like, this is like so randomly like specific. So I would find something, implant the face onto it via Photoshop, and then going into using Stable Diffusion that has like 6 different plugins to be able to turn this into a, photorealistic thing. I would take it into Photoshop, edit the eyes, change, it had a weird gnarly finger here. You have to know how to like go in and use the generative AI tools to be able to go in and fix things. Like all in all, the amount of time and money that it would take to do a photo shoot like this would cost like many thousands of dollars. And, creating an image like this is anywhere between 1 to 3 hours. So it still requires work. It's not as simple as like typing in, a prompt. There is definitely like more to it, but I do, specialize in design, like aspiring designers. I've never done anything like this before. And because of things like Photoshop, generative tools, I don't know if have you ever played in the Photoshop generative tools? Do you
I
know
have
what?
started a little bit. I have
Yeah.
it's part of the Adobe Creative Suite, right? I
Yeah.
think that, yeah,
So
it's
you
I have
can
it.
Yeah, so you can do all kinds of really wild things.
I
So
mean,
like
what's really cool for me, I just
uh-huh,
saw this. A lot of people have started to do YouTube videos about it. What I
uh-huh.
saw is like people are like fill, yeah, they put in like fill in the background and stuff like that. This
Yeah,
is really
yeah,
cool. So like if you have a
yeah.
boring
I
set,
can
you can
I
like do
can
that. Yeah.
So like I'll just show you really quick just because this is really fun on how you can actually like change things and do all kinds of stuff. So like here's a random image. The original one came from Midjourney. If I wanted to change something here, like I'm going to show you how simple this is. Like let's say I want like a totally different hairdo. I can just, use this marquee tool to select around the image here. And, this is not, I'm not being exact. This is not taking a tremendous amount of time. And I could, I could put in, oh, it's going to make me do it again. Hold on 1 second. I can just put in, a new hairstyle here and it will completely seamlessly create it.
So this is
Um,
Photoshop AI, right? The new thing that
yeah.
came out. Yeah.
Well, so this is in every form of the new. So in Photoshop 2024 just came out. This
Yeah.
was the original beta tested version. But all I have to do is go like this and type in the word. Let's just say I want like red hair. It's going to analyze the whole entire environment around it, and it is going to try to match the style as much as
Wow.
possible. So
So
you can
cool.
see here that like I didn't, I could instantly change it to red hair. I could, and it's so fun right now because what's happening currently with Photoshop is like because they were testing this, you could have like unlimited generations. They're moving over into a credit-based system as of November 1st, which is kind of unfortunate because it just like gave so much, room to play. But you can see here, like, really simple, easy options. I could change my outfit if I want to just by, I can just as like a real quick thing, if I wanted to just, change the entire thing, generative fill, I'm just going to type in red dress just to see what happens here. Sometimes it comes up with some really crazy stuff that like doesn't work, but it's analyzing the style. It's trying to match things to, to
Oh
like
wow.
to be able to do like, and so like this is what I mean by like sometimes it's not going to be proper, but like it's in, it can take some time.
I
So
have a
like
question
maybe
regarding
yeah.
especially with humans, right? The
Uh-huh.
AI is not really good when it comes to hands and fingers and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Do you
Yes.
fix stuff like that usually,
Oh my
or what?
gosh.
Yeah,
Total, like all the time. So
yeah,
like most of the images that you're seeing will have like a weird finger or something strange going on. And also like, so you want to correct eyes and hands and all of those things. And it becomes very easy in Photoshop to do that. So let's just say like, what's really neat about it is this is not destructive. So I can make changes or try new things And I can have options here without it taking very much time at all. So if I want to, put myself in a black dress or whatever, I can just kind of play here. It's almost like paper dolls or something. So it's so much fun to play with. But if I always want to go back to the original, it's not like, I it's not like I have to commit to this, like it's destroying the image or something. So I can always go back and see, maybe I only want to change my hair here. And you can do things like expand out to different dimensions. So like, let's say I wanted to have this be a website header. I can, use the crop tool to expand it to be a header, use this marquee tool here. I want to go over part of the image so it can read the style of the image here. And this, generative toolbox comes up and I can just hit enter. Like I don't even have to type anything. It will analyze the background and try to create something to continue on the environment. Sometimes this creates really weird stuff. Like you'll get weird characters that like make absolutely no sense. But and you'll get but in this instance, so you can see it instantly created something that could continue on. And I didn't do I can move this a little bit here. It like sometimes if you don't do the exact marking here, it can be a little bit off. So I can just go like that. But you can see here like how it's completely seamless, and I could be putting text over here to create that. And what's so neat is that if I was just to go in and like create an area on top of this and like try to create text here, like it's not going to work. Like if I said put in text of AI magic or something, it's going to create something really strange because like the Photoshop doesn't know how to read text yet. And so what we're getting into is using things like Dolly 3 and so see how it's like it typed in like magic, but it's like not fitting, and it didn't even listen. It like put in other backgrounds
but yes, the question regarding what you mentioned, like if you would do something like that, obviously it's very expensive to do a photo shoot like that. But what are you paying for the tools typically you use, the main tools you use to create AI art like this?
Yeah, so you have I have, Midjourney. I pay about $60 a month for that. For Photoshop, we're looking at probably anywhere between $10 to $80 a month, depending on if you have the whole suite or not. The other tools that we use are free, usually. Things like Ideogram, which is not even really available to the public right now. What's really neat is you can use something like Ideogram, which I'm actually not logged into yet, so I would have to do that. But you can create really cool text things here that you could then use in your composition. So it's really like preventing you from having to hire a typography person, designer, all these things. You want to learn graphic design skills, branding skills, all of these like incredible things to be able to create a cohesive brand that's going to work, because you can't just have like 275 different types of styles of things and expect your brand to feel cohesive. So there needs to be some decisions made on, stylistically what makes sense for your brand personality. Like I don't ever see you, Navid, having a like super feminine brand. So if you were like doing a bunch of pink witches on your website, like you're like, oh, but I really like this is cool.
It's my new Halloween look, guys.
Yes,
it's coming up.
Totally.
It's coming up.
It's not gonna fit your brand. So I would have to ask, or like I take people through a process of like, who is your target market? Well, who are you looking to attract more of? How do we figure out what your personal brand style is? And so when I think of you, Navid, I think of you as like a range between always well-dressed, sometimes on the athletic side, all the way to like, you could dress up. Like you could have, especially living where you've lived in the world and stuff, I'm sure you have a range between comfortable and like super high end. If you were doing, I like could see you like even edging towards like a little bit more fun, edgy, but very professional design. And so you wouldn't have something like with paint splashes on it, or you wouldn't have, some wild, creative, chaotic sort of thing, because that wouldn't be fitting for you personally or the brand that you're trying to create. Whereas I am a creative, so I can get away with a lot of that stuff. And so we have to think about these things when we're generating images. for sure.
Yeah, I think design is so interesting because I have always been, I mean, obviously it has evolved over the years, but, for example, with our summits and my own website and stuff like that, we've always taken, the design. Now we're actually working on some new stuff.
Mhm.
And, by the time this goes live, you'll probably see this when, with summits, my own website and stuff like that. So we have always done that. And I think I mean, some women brands, for example, in the
Mhm.
space, they might only appeal to mostly women because of
Mhm.
how the colors and the aesthetic and everything is.
Mhm.
I think for my brand, usually my audience has been a lot around 50-50, women
Mhm.
and men. So that's
Mhm.
kind of, it doesn't matter too much. Like I can appeal to women and men
Mhm.
for my products and services and what I've offered. Whereas some women or even some men in
Mhm.
some cases, if they have really, really masculine stuff,
Yeah.
that they're not going to appeal to so many women.
Sure.
So
Yeah, I mean,
so
think
that's
about what's the guy's name who did the 75 Hard? What's his name? Do you know?
what's his name? I did
And
75 hard. It's
yeah,
it's Andy. No, but
yeah,
no,
and yeah, I forgot what his last name
Frisella,
is.
right? Something like that.
Yeah, Brazili, right. He's a perfect example of somebody who is like incredibly masculine in his branding. He's
But he's attracting
so
women too, though. He's actually not
exactly.
doing that.
But he's attracting women who appreciate that value of
Yeah.
masculinity. If you think about 75 Hard, it is a very like aggressive, strict, and not very feminine approach at all. You're not going to have like some Susie like mom at home who like, collects stuffed animals who's going to probably be in like
You
necessarily
can't
like
be too soft to take his
no.
program.
No,
You're gonna cry every day. So
exactly. Well, I mean, think about like his, podcasts and like, how he uses his slang or swearing or whatever. Like every part of his brand is so fitting for who he is, the types of people he would attract. He wouldn't have a listener that wouldn't be into that. He wouldn't have somebody who's going to do 75 hard unless they're going to be into that. So, of course, when it comes to his image generation, he's only going to be choosing masculine and edgy things, whereas somebody like you might find something more gender neutral. You might
yeah.
find something that just feels professional. It feels like you, but it's not going to be overly feminine or overly
I think
masculine.
I mix like lifestyle
Yeah,
and professional pretty much. That's usually because my brand is
totally.
like global citizen. So I've been,
Yeah,
living this life for like the
yeah.
past 10 years. So I think, I mean, I can just see like, for example, I had a photo shoot like, I think it was like 8 years ago in New York. I still have some of these images, but they are like when I had long hair and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Maybe I wanted to have the New York background, but I didn't want to
Sure,
go to New York right now, or I couldn't go.
sure.
And I wanted to and I could
Mhm.
use AI to actually take some of the new professional
100%.
shoots I have and then just kind of generate this, but with a background or style I
Yeah.
want somewhere in the world. That's how I can see
Mhm.
more kind of realistic style images being
Yeah.
created with the use of AI for my
Oh,
personal brand.
and it's just as of now, there are photography techniques that you can use in the generation that you literally can't tell it's not a photograph.
Yeah, I could tell it's like I had a Leica camera before. Unfortunately, it was
Mhm.
stolen, but
Oh.
yeah. But I saw some people like with the
Mhm.
Q2. It's a very specific style with Leica. It's like the Leica colors
Mhm.
and stuff like that. You can actually, I've
Mhm.
seen people do that in Midjourney and these kind of
Mhm.
AI tools, and you can actually get really, really close, or it's pretty much the same. Essentially, it looks the
Yeah.
same. It's amazing.
I mean, and the ways to do that are like to find photographers that you love their work and mix it, and then understanding lenses, lighting, film style, all of those things. If you input that and then the functionality of the raw mode on Midjourney, you can get some incredibly photorealistic things. And so I think what's going to happen is, like what you're talking about, you are a lifestyle aspirational. So it would make sense that you would have images in really cool locations and, doing all the things so that you can be showcasing what the end benefit to your ideal client is, which is if they follow in your footsteps, they can have an aspirational lifestyle too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit about money with this because
Hmm.
I don't know if you sold your AI art like
Hmm.
specifically, and not just
Yeah.
using for marketing and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
have you uploaded to some platforms? I don't know,
Hmm.
Etsy. I've seen some people doing this. I don't
Yeah.
know where you are selling yours and
Hmm.
how is this working out?
So I try to live by the words of Alex Hermosi as much as possible. Like, try to stay in my lane in regards to like finding, instead of doing 27 different businesses, I've gone all in on one, and it's been the best, most profitable thing I've ever done. I even, really stopped doing too much course launching teaching because I was like, okay, I'm going all in on this. And so the business is exploding because of that. In the beginning, when I was doing this, I tried to, be all things to all people with AI art. So my membership originally was like, hey, learn how to do Redbubble, learn how to, create stock images, like do all this stuff. And what I discovered was that I personally haven't made money from uploading my images to print on demand stores, but my students have. And the amount of money that they've generated from it without doing ads hasn't been enough to make it something I would refer people to do. I think that there's so much competition because it's so easy to do that. I wouldn't recommend it. But where you can make a tremendous amount of money and where people have crushed with this is by using the art in AI art memberships. So collecting a design style that you really like. So let's say in my case, I love these ethereal, whimsical images. If I took all of those, put them in a monthly membership for, $15, $27 a month, sold them to, different types of woopreneurs that would be into that kind of imagery. Instead of them going to go learn how to create AI art, they could be a member and I can provide all the art for them every month. That is an amazing way to make money from AI art, far better than print on demand and all the things.
I love this actually. Just wanted to chime in because I've seen, we have sold templates and stuff like that before, obviously, for website templates, summit templates, launch templates, everything in between. And I've seen a lot of people doing this with Canva, right? Canva templates are everywhere. So I think this is a good trend. If you're doing, you're very specific with who you're targeting. So I think if you are specific, you can actually do this better. And I've seen people on YouTube trying to do this print on demand. Didn't really work out too well for them either. They made like 2 sales and even, lost $60 or something like that, even with ads. So I don't recommend it either. I just wanted to see what, it's fun to try out things, right? To try sell on Etsy and stuff like that. But is that the best use of your time and money as a creator? I don't think so. I think there's way better use cases, unless you are really big on Etsy, of course. Maybe you make a lot of, it's like the 1%, right? Probably it's like a really small percentage that are crushing it on Etsy and the rest are making no money or whatever.
To crush it in those sites, just from what I've heard from talking to people who've done those, you have to understand, it's just like learning Facebook ads or anything else. There's a strategy. You have to know how to like find out what's trending. You have to know where is there the least amount of sellers so you can maybe break through, but has a high enough search term. Like there's all this like complex stuff that goes into it. So you're totally right. The only time I would say print on demand is great is if you're a coach or consultant or creative and you have an audience and you want to sell them something. Like you want to create a really cool journal that you put together, or you want to have t-shirts, or you want to create a cool apparel line. What's really neat about the print on demand is you can create your own dress, your own jogging outfit, your own yoga pants. It doesn't cost any money and you can put it out to your audience. So like Navid, if you wanted to have like something with your brand on it and have it available, it's not going to cost you any time or any money, but you could make it look really cool and have it available for sale. So like that's becomes super powerful because when you have an event or you want to make it available for hardcore fans, you have that capability of doing that.
Yeah, and it's custom as well. That's the key word. You have attention, you have an audience already, right? You need to have an audience to be able to do that. If you're starting from scratch and just, I'm gonna make money from AI art selling on a platform, Etsy or print on demand or whatever you want to do, right? That's not gonna work too well. But when you have an audience, you can actually just have something to sell, like a swag store, right? It's like people printing out t-shirts, but you can actually do it more custom, maybe with the help of AI art, without hiring designers and stuff like that. And just taking a little bit of time, as Jenna has explained here. It's like the process, right? Because you have to upscale as well the images, right? It's not only like you getting something from Midjourney. Probably their solution is not the best. I'm not sure. And then what do you use? What tool do you use to actually upscale this to make it usable?
Topaz Gigapixel is my favorite. It's so amazing. There's a woman that I know, and this is kind of a hardcore situation, but she has this very unfortunate situation where she only had one picture of her son, like one.
Wow.
And it was a very blurry picture. And I was able to take her picture into Topaz Gigapixel, and with the power of AI, it turned it into a completely clear picture as if he was like in the room. And she just like lost her mind. And then I took that picture that was upscaled, put it into Midjourney, and created a version of her son if he had made it to like the age of 28 or something. And so it was like there's all this incredible stuff that you can do with upscaling that can like lead to incredible things. So, and taking old pictures of like grandma or, a family member that's passed and being able to bring them into like full clarity, it's almost like they're in the room. So Topaz Gigapixel is by far my favorite for both video
Wow.
and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, this is really incredible, actually. The use case, like imagine you have
Mhm.
old photos on your iPhone or something like that, or whatever,
Yeah.
like from the past when you grew up. Like some
Hmm.
people who didn't grow up like when the internet was created. Like we didn't have photos, when we
Yeah.
grew up too much. There was not too much available, like with
Mm-mm.
smartphones and stuff like that. So we don't have
Hmm.
too much. Maybe just like normal analog
Hmm.
pictures, something like really bad quality. So yeah, I mean that's really powerful, actually, how you can do that, and I
Yeah.
can see
And
the use cases.
if you want to try out some upscaling, it's not as good as Topaz Gigapixel, but like I said, Topaz Gigapixel also does video, which is incredible. So if you
What does
have a
this cost, by the way?
blurry
What is the cost for the tool?
so it can range. Sometimes they have sales, and they have sales like quite a bit, but you can buy like a whole entire suite of products for I think like anywhere between $150 to $300. Topaz
Okay.
Gigapixel by itself can range anywhere between 70 to 100.
Okay.
So if you wanted to do a version for free, in programs like Stable Diffusion, you can download plugins that you can put into Stable Diffusion as an AI generator that will do upscaling. That's incredible. But you can also use something that's very easy to use, like ClipDrop. I think it's ClipDrop.io. It might be clipdrop.co. I'm not exactly sure. But if you look up ClipDrop in Google for an upscaler, you can actually upscale images, and they look pretty incredible for sure.
Awesome. And what are some more ways you're going to how do you see the future
Mhm.
of this? What are
Mhm.
you looking to do for your own business, new
Mhm.
things you will create with the
Mhm.
help of AI art?
Yeah. So one of the things that we're working on right now that's been really incredible is teaching people, how do you find things out in the world in Pinterest that are absolutely amazing for your site design or your landing page design or your sales page design? How do you use AI to convert all those inspiring images into images you can actually use? So they're taking basically what the big thing that everybody's doing right now, how it's moving into the future is they're able to translate beautiful things in the world into something they can actually use with web design and sales page design. And the next phase of that, and I'm so excited, there's new technology that's coming out that is allowing you to use AI to design an entire site. So you can literally type in, I want an animation of this type of astronaut floating in on a rocket around this thing, going to, an opt-in, and you can literally type out what you want the web design to look like with animations, and it will program the entire thing, and you can edit it with typing as well.
What tool is that?
So,
Because I had a
mhm,
conversation with the founder of
mhm.
10web. He's basically
Okay.
you can do, but that's more like
Mhm.
generating an entire site. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if that generates too many kind of custom animations and stuff like that
Yeah.
yet. At least it's not that powerful for the design. But
Sure.
how do you do this
Yeah,
at least in the
so
near future?
it's not out yet, but it's called Dora. So that
Okay.
Dora.ai, really, if you watch the preview for it, they already have an animated tool out that is really cool. It's pretty complex for a newbie person, but you kind of have to like understand like how objects interact with each other. Like there's a little bit of tech capacity for you to have
But
with
is
that.
that for websites? Sorry, is that
It's
for
for
just?
websites. So like their
But
current anim.
what kind of
Mhm.
is that for a specific builder, or is this just like code, or how do you do
It's
this?
it's an animator built within a website builder. So it's
Okay.
all in one. And
Is
so
that
you
a builder? Like actually, the tool is a builder, right? It's similar to like Framer or Webflow
Yes,
or something like
yes,
that.
yeah.
Oh, okay, got it.
It's kind of like a Framer or Webflow, but it has these animation things built in. So I was
Oh,
watching like a tutorial of somebody, and this is before the typing out thing comes out. So the type out a prompt, create an entire site thing is like on its way. But the thing that they have available right now is let's say you have some image of a Midjourney image of a bee. You can put it in there and create wings so that it will fly, and it will follow you as you scroll down the page as it's flying. And all of these things are happening around to create this like animated thing. My vision for the future is like truly how to take websites and turn them in from these like flat informational things, or even sales pages, even more important being sales pages, and turn them into experiences that usually were only available to hardcore animators and programmers, that now with the image generation over here, the animation being made easier, you could like just say, like, if you had some fantasy avatar style world that you wanted to create, where some creature comes in and does this thing that even without you having these experiences, your whole entire imagination can go wild. And so you end up like just say you wanted to do an ocean theme with like this really cool ornate gold, Art Deco aesthetic. You could create this ocean with like, moving water and an octopus and like interactive things all over the page, and not even have to do a line of programming. And that's like literally where this is going, not in a matter of years, but in a matter of months.
Yeah, you're gonna
So,
save so much money
mhm,
and time with this, because it's
yeah.
also easier to justify the cost of tools when you actually
Hmm.
think about the technology they are integrated into them. Like so much,
Hmm.
the tools are gonna be very powerful, and I think a
Yeah.
lot of tools like AI should be used as an assistant in your business, right? So
Hmm.
a lot of tools that doesn't integrate with AI or implement something, I think they will be left behind a little bit.
Hmm.
I'm watching email marketing softwares like ConvertKit come on. You're gonna speed up the process a little bit. Like Get Response is already doing that.
Hmm.
Like they sponsor our summit, so they're already all in with AI and like subject lines and stuff like that. I think tools like ConvertKit is just gonna. I think they are working on. They must be doing it, because
Yeah.
that's gonna be something that is a must. I think for every SaaS basically
Hmm.
needs to have an AI component. And the same with
Yeah.
creators, marketers,
Hmm.
entrepreneurs. They need to offer something. Let's say you have a course or something like that.
Hmm.
You need to basically say how you can use AI
Hmm.
to speed up the process. For example, how you can use AI to help with a virtual summit or an online
Hmm.
course or something.
Yeah.
It doesn't replace you or something like
Yeah.
that, but it's gonna
Yeah.
speed up the process a lot. And
Oh,
I think
yeah. I
that's the
mean,
key.
I don't know how you've been using ChatGPT, but one of the most current things that I've used it for, and it's such a small thing, but it's so helpful. Like if you're a course creator and you like create a video and you normally have to type out your step-by-step instructions, like what you can do now is just copy the transcript that's from Descript. If you know what Descript is, it's an, amazing video editing program. Plop it into ChatGPT and say, write out the instructions. And it's just like something as simple as that can make life so much easier. But we're going to get to the point here where we're going to be able to create Pixar level style movies without having to do any 3D animation learning. You're going to be able to create the next Martin Scorsese style film with a automated generated version of you. And I don't think like people fully understand, like, this is not that far away. And even Meta is coming out with something with, Quest 3 is coming out here in just a little bit. And in the most recent Meta converse, they had this big conference about all the AI things that are coming out with Facebook specifically, and with the Quest 3. Are you familiar with that, with the AI, or with the
I've seen some stuff because I was
mhm.
watching some stuff for what they were sharing recently, but I
Yeah.
didn't like dive in too much to it. But yeah.
They're doing something right now, and this is like the most mind-boggling thing. The same way that ChatGPT can analyze and you can program it, like we've programmed it to write all of our sales emails in my voice and things like that. What's coming out with Meta is that they're going to allow you to create a fictitious version of you that can actually live in the metaverse. And so you can actually have not just a chatbot conversation with you, but they will actually see the animated version of you in the metaverse and actually have a conversation with you, sharing your knowledge when you're not even there, which I just think is like, what?
It's mind blowing. The stuff that's coming is really, really, really cool,
Yeah.
and I think it's just gonna it's just gonna evolve from here. Like
Mhm.
as I said, I was speaking to someone from 10web. He was like, you soon, basically, I can take my design from my custom websites, really personalized, and they will be able to take that and just kind of, if I want a landing page in the same style, they will be able to
Mhm.
generate this again or recreate it basically. And I think, like as you mentioned about the animation stuff like that costs so much money. You need like an entire team of designers and stuff like that, or animators, developers to do stuff like that for a site. And now this is becoming available to pretty much anyone who, I mean, of course, you need the skills to do it. It's not just 100% straightforward with everything. If it's a little bit technical, like you have showed here with some images, it can take some time, but it's far easier than being like a skilled designer or developer or something like that. So I think
Yeah.
we have come pretty far with this already.
Yeah. There's a really amazing opportunity for everybody who jumps on this technology right now, because Alex Hermosi actually talked about this too, that there is this time before everything is so massively adopted that the people who learn the tools, who are on top of the tools, are going to have a way bigger advantage than people who don't. And that there is still a perceived value. Like, let's say somebody charges $5,000 to do a website. There's this interim time where not everybody's aware of those tools. So they're going to continue paying the $5, 10, 15, $20,000 to developers. Meanwhile, little Sally Joe over here, who's never created a website before, learns the tools and then suddenly can charge 5 or 10,000, and it's only taking her an hour to do it,
Yeah, but
or
that's the
5 or whatever.
opportunity, right? Like the
Yeah.
opportunity is to
Yeah.
learn AI. That's why we are putting together this series of sessions here, bringing experts like Jenna on,
Mhm.
because we want to showcase like you need to learn this. Like it's not
Mhm.
going to, you're not going to be replaced by AI. You will be replaced by someone
Other
actually
people.
using AI and leveraging it in the correct way. And the same way, whether you're going to work for a company or you're your own, work for yourself, you can leverage these tools to charge more actually, because you're going
Oh
to be a
yeah.
lot more efficient, and you can
Oh
train your team on this as well if you have a team.
oh yeah.
So yeah.
You had asked me in the question before about how I've made money with images, and the biggest money maker that I have right now is doing branding images. So when
Do you do
people,
consulting for it, or like a service? I mean.
yeah, so I have, it's like what's actually happening now is like I personally don't necessarily want to do a bunch of branded images because it's not how I want to spend my time. Although I did a tremendous amount of them to learn the technology and teach them to my students. So what I'm actually doing now is in the beginning I would charge anywhere from $250 to $1,000 an image, make
Oh.
that money, and then turn around and teach my students how to do it. So now when I get requests, I send it to students as a design contest. And so they all are like getting really good with their skills. And then whoever has the best image is the one that gets the pot of money. And so like that's been really fun, because then they're like getting better at their skills, and people are able to get branded images. But we have a lot of students who have actually taken their skills and have started, AI branding photo agencies. They've started doing website design with those branding photos, doing social media things. We've even had photographers come in and use this as an additional service so that they can like do their branded photo shoot and then say, oh, we're going to give you, an extra 100 images that are in all these different environments. So the ones that are really adopting it, not going like, oh, this is going to put me out of business. There are like photographers, designers, and artists that are all using the technology to make more money.
Well, that's awesome, because you can also work for big
Mhm.
companies, or whatever, we're doing this kind of work, because that's going to be a really really desirable skill. They're going to actually look for, they're already looking for this, a lot of companies, because they see
Mhm.
kind of the power of AI and stuff
Mhm.
like that. It's like everywhere pretty much, but there's also people who are maybe not seeing it yet, so it's going to be fully adopted maybe in, I don't know, maybe a few years, but it's like it's
Mhm.
gonna go very rapidly, right? It's the same as like with the when the internet came, right? So
Yeah.
like people think now we are think some people who come in now, they might think they are late because everyone talking about it,
Mhm.
but it must have been the same when the internet was new, right?
Of
So it's
course.
like, and it's the same with crypto. Everyone thinking they are late, and then there's not, and then there's a new wave, and then it's always gonna be like that. So it's pretty
Oh,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
But
love it.
awesome. This was a great session. Like, do you have any
Thank you.
final words to the audience here, if they want to get into this and create their
Yeah.
own AI art, or maybe
Mhm.
where they can find you as well?
Yeah. So if as you're getting into stuff, I would say, dive into Midjourney, dive into Dolly 3 and playing with things like Midjourney, and just even knowing which tools to use and knowing, that you could have both of those powerful tools in your back pocket would be the first step. And I think second step would be getting into Photoshop and learning generative things so that you can start changing the images that have bad hands or eyes or whatever. And then, of course, developing finding a way to create a brand strategy, using the images to create cohesive images, all of those things would be things that I would recommend doing. If you want any help with learning how to do any of that stuff, you can find me at secretAIsociety.com. You can get on a wait list there. That's the best way. And or you can look up JennaSoard.com would be the other place to find me too. So
awesome. And if you have any questions or comments, any takeaways for this session, leave a comment below the video. And subscribe to the channel if you like content like this. We have a lot more sessions to come when it comes to AI and how to grow your business and stuff like that. So yeah, thanks, Jenna, for coming on here. It was really good.
Thank you. Super fun.